Welcome back, Memoir Tribe. Today we're joined by Anne Beaudoin, author of The Truth of Chasing Rainbows. Anne's memoir tells the remarkable story of leaving everything behind to buy a rainbow trout farm and bed and breakfast in Costa Rica. Through humor, heart, and hard earned wisdom, Anne shares what it means to take risks and find purpose in unexpected places. And as someone who also spent time living in Costa Rica, this conversation felt especially meaningful because there's something about that country that changes the way you see life and yourself. It has a way of both humbling and transforming you. Together, we talk about the beauty and chaos of starting over, the challenges of chasing a dream abroad, and how sometimes the truth we find isn't necessarily the one we're looking for. This episode is a celebration of bold choices, second chances, and the wild, unpredictable path to becoming who we were meant to be. Let's dive in.
Hi, Anne. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I really
I've
appreciate
been, I've been so looking forward to this conversation.
it.
So, for people who have not read your book, The Truth of Chasing Rainbows, what do you say we just start with a summary? Can you give us a quick summary of what it's about?
Well, it's about the inner work is about following your tug. You know, sometimes we have dreams or we think we can't do something, and we kind of squash that. And the book is really about what if? Like, what if we go do that big thing? What if we do, And so that's what the essence of the book is about. The backdrop is the real life story of us, my husband and I, moving to Costa Rica. And what if we did this thing and we reinvented ourselves as rainbow trout farmers and B&B hosts, and we had never done anything like that. We are suburbanites, true and full on. So it was a real huge departure of reinventing ourselves, and so that's the story, of what we did, and the essence of go follow that thing that tugs at you.
I can relate to that. That speaks to me for sure. Why did you decide on memoir? I know you wrote a blog. You wrote a blog for about 5 years while you were there, right?
Correct. Well, in the early days, it was like every couple of hours I was writing, something. I started a blog mostly to appease our parents and immediate family, so that they had something to read and they could follow our journey without calling us every 2 minutes going like, what's going on? So we wanted, and I love to write. So I thought, well, this is a really great vehicle for us to just hey, read what we did this week and not have to, spend hours on the phone trying to explain our journey. So that's how it started. Mm-hmm. And then I was getting people, I would not write one Sunday. It was every Sunday. And where's your blog? Is everything okay? And people I didn't know and strangers were contacting me. I'm like, oh, I've got a little following here. So that was kind of interesting. And I wrote it for 5 years, kind of every Sunday, accumulatively of what happened during the week, kind of a highlight reel. And yeah, so the book is somewhat based on the blog. This book could have gone many different story arcs. I just couldn't write all of it and everything. A lot of it was left on the cutting room floor, as we call it, by the editors. It's it was just too much. So we tried to synthesize it so that there was enough of a story to get that feeling of what we did there.
Because so much happens, right? I find that challenge when I'm writing my own expat story about Costa Rica. That's the memoir that I'm currently working on. And I just sometimes am not even sure how or where to put in. So I have a stack of scenes. That's what this has turned into. I just have a big stack of scenes and I'm trying to figure out which ones I can actually weave into a cohesive story with an arc. Quite a bit of a challenge. What was your life like before you decided to move?
Well, just a very typical suburbanite, commuting in and out of highways to get to work and back again. And we were renovating a house. So there was all that was going to be our forever home. there was just a lot of stress, and there was a lot of, just the day to day, just the day to day life that we live in suburbia and in the cities, and we wanted something different. Like some would say that, oh, it sounds like a midlife crisis, but I had actually lived uh, doing this a lot, living my suburban life and then pulling myself out and going on an adventure and then coming back and doing the right thing and then going somewhere else. And so I have a lot of adventures. I'll be writing many more books about all my other adventures. And my husband, who was from England, he moved to Canada twice. So it wasn't different for him either to want something. He kept settling and goes, oh, I think I want something else. So we were just kind of on the same page at the same time. And we decided, hey, let's do something.
I feel like I have about a 4-year shelf life. I just think life is too short to all be lived in one place.
Yeah, I have about 5 years. Yeah, that's about it, right.
So what was the spark that made you guys decide to do it this time, and why Costa Rica?
It wasn't Costa Rica at first. At first it was France. And on our honeymoon, we went to France to scope whether that would be a good country. And we fell in love with France. But the international schools were prohibitive. They were exorbitant. And we just knew we wouldn't be able to afford it. So we came home and we thought, oh, maybe we'll renovate our house instead. Maybe that'll be our big adventure. And then Kevin went to work and came back and said, oh, something weird happened today. We were all having like a conversation about like anywhere in the world, where would you live? And one of his coworkers said Costa Rica. Now, I've always wanted to go to Costa Rica, but not like live there. Like it didn't even occur to me to live in Costa Rica. And ever since then, he was on his laptop in the evenings, and I was on my laptop, and we were looking at the education system and the health care. And it was kind of, this coworker hyped it kind of as Switzerland of Central America, and it's safe. And so we just kind of dug deeper. And, one day we're kind of like, this is kind of cool. Like this would be interesting. And we weren't old enough to retire. We weren't at retirement age, but we were also like young enough that we could do something like this if we were smart about it. So we thought that could be, and then Kevin started sending me like pictures of all these, real estate, for sale. Like this is for sale. And I thought, whoa, like, I don't know. I can't make a decision based on this picture. So we decided to go for 2 weeks scoping expedition. And it was just like that build of the momentum just built, and we just got really focused. And we didn't say, how about Nicaragua or how about Panama? We just kind of laser focused on Costa Rica. And I'm not sure why, but it all worked out.
Well, because once you're there, it's really hard to leave. There are actually a lot of people that go for vacation and then just never come home. That's a pretty common thing in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
My husband and I used to talk all the time about how it just feels different. Like it's kinetic. You can feel a difference when you're there. So you took 2 trips to visit, right? So the first one, I believe in your book, you said it kind of just ended up being, you ended up just doing a bunch of touristy stuff with a group of people. So that resulted in a second trip back where you brought your son, right? And why did you decide to land in, where specifically? Which mountain town was it?
It was Rio Blanco, and it's in the Dota Mountains. So it is at 7,000 feet in elevation, and it's about a 2-hour drive from San Jose, the capital of San Jose, depending on traffic. It could be an hour and a half, it could be 4 hours. So it just depends on, the mountain drive can be slow sometimes. So.
Yes,
and,
I think.
Yeah, what was I going to say? The first trip was to scope things out, and when we actually left, we hadn't found a place for us. Like we didn't feel like this is it. We kind of went, like what? But we loved the mountain air. We loved it. Something about it. but we didn't spend any time scoping the mountains, like other than La Fortuna and Arenal, which we loved, and Monteverde. And I really thought Monteverde was like where there was a great school there. And I just was really, yeah, we should be there, you know. And Kevin just wasn't feeling it at all. He's like to, as a touristy place, sure. But he just wasn't feeling it. So I thought, well, okay, then I guess I'm not really sure because this whole very hot climate is not for me. But when we came back up the mountain to come back to the airport, we stopped in the mountains, like kind of that one last, let's look at this panoramic view.
Yeah.
And we looked across and there was this double rainbow. And it was just like, this intangible, like, you want to put meaning to everything. Well, I do. And it's like, what does this mean? Like it was almost like that weird meme that was on YouTube years ago, like, what does this mean? This double rainbow. But I really wanted it to mean something. And then I just forgot about it. And then, it just so happens that when we found the property online a few days later, in October, online, when we started looking, like, where is this property? It was basically right where that rainbow was. So it was really like very like, I don't know, kind of get goosebumps just thinking.
And it was a rainbow trout farm, right? I get goosebumps talking about it too. That is how the universe speaks. I'm certain of it. So the trout farm is what took you there. Tell us a little bit about how you navigated that with zero experience.
We just are can-do people. So we just, there's sometimes having some blinders on and just believing that we'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. I'll take I think it's Marie Folio who says everything's figure outable. I think we just had that hat on. I think we just kind of went, we love the place. We were, you find things to convince yourself why it will work. And then if you don't like the place, you convince yourself why it won't. We were just kind of talking ourselves into it. And, but we both had experience. I had a lot of marketing experience and I knew I could probably drum up the business for the B&B. Neither one of us had any Spanish, so we had to learn the Spanish, but how are we going to get, customers for the fish? But that's okay. We'll just, ease our way in. We don't have to be experts today, so we really believed in kind of a learner's mind and mindset of, well, we have enough money to keep us going for a year, like we have time to sort this out. And we kind of, that's how we started. We didn't believe we knew it all. So we were humble and we asked our neighbors and our workers and we leaned on them to see what was the best way. And then we learned something new and we, Google is our friend and, we would try to educate ourselves as well. So yeah, it was, it didn't all happen overnight. We learned a lot, about the river, about weather, about oxygenated water. Like it's not an easy process. Like to keep rainbow trout alive and healthy is it takes several different aspects to it to make it work. So
they live in several different stages, right? I kind of gathered that from your book, that they're in different types of ponds based on what stage of life they're in. And all those ponds need something very, very different.
Yeah, not that they need different. They still need oxygenated water. Sure. They still need clean water. They need, food.
Basic.
But the different ponds were allowed us to have the same size of fish so that when you fish them out, because we were fishing them out with a net, that you're not trying to, small and big, you're catching kind of the same size because our clients who wanted fish were looking for 1 kilo fish, or no, we want little fingerlings, or so we had to go to the right pond at the right size for what we were catching for whatever client wanted.
Okay, that makes sense. I want to make sure that we give you credit too, because I believe for a certain period of time right after you moved there, you didn't have really good internet connection. So how much were you actually able? I've been there. I know we know exactly what that was like. How are you actually able to get along? Because in true Costa Rica fashion, although you thought you were going to have help wasn't really there when you arrived, right, to your property. So tell us a little bit about how you kind of got along during that period.
Without internet?
Yeah.
Well, I fell in love with this little cafe that was an internet cafe, and it was a real lifeline. We met this wonderful young lady who helped us out. And yeah, I mean, I would just go for half an hour at a time and, get my fix. I was really like, on Facebook and talk to my children and talk to my parents and so forth. And then she really helped us with the data card and, what the next steps would be. She was amazing. And so we didn't have any signal on our property. Like we were told that we did, but like, yes, we did, like way high up, like in the right, situation, maybe you'd get a couple of bars. And so we would go around on this ATV, around our property trying to find a signal. I was with my laptop trying, I've got a signal. And then we had found a signal near the one-room school, which was off our property, but not too far. And, but now it's sunny or it was started raining. It's like, what are we doing? Like, this is craziness. But it was part of the adventure, like it was just, it was frustrating, but we also wanted to unplug. Like we didn't go there to be plugged in and have internet every day like that. In the early days, we were quite happy to be like, okay, like, this is part of the adventure and the learning, but also we really needed to decompress. And I didn't want to be shackled to, the internet. I was hoping to kind of let some of that go. But I won't lie, I was very happy when we finally got internet at the house. It was it made things a lot easier to run a B&B for sure.
Even when you think you don't want it, it's still something that way, especially when you're learning something brand new like that you didn't have any experience with.
Yeah.
We had
being connected with your family and so forth. It's just important.
Yes, it absolutely is. And you think that it would be easy to just pick up the phone and make a phone call, but even that is it's just not that simple. Like I bought my daughter and I a little the Facebook portal way back then. Those went out the window. They absolutely did not work. We never had enough signal to use them. So yeah, it's way more important than I think we give credit for.
Well, when we landed, I kept thinking, you land, you let people know that you landed safely. And every time I picked up the phone, like the crackling sounds, like I thought, I'm not going to phone. They won't even hear me. And they'll worry, and they'll be like, what's going on? So it's like, I'll do it tomorrow morning, and then I try again and couldn't hear. It's like, what is going on? So literally days went by. If my kids didn't call me within days, I would be like freaking out, So yeah, I was like, oh yeah, it's just not like lickety split easy. Like what do I do here? So yeah.
But you make it work. You find a spot where there is internet. We just carried around a backpack with all of our laptop stuff all the time.
Yes.
I would love to hear you read a piece for us.
Okay. I will read the part where we literally just landed. So we had already visited twice. We sold our house. We both quit our jobs. We said goodbye to our family. We're now on an airplane and we've landed. And this is just like literally my impression once we landed. I'm just going to read off of my computer, not my books. Thursday, August 23rd, 2012. Landed. We'd done it. We'd made it to Costa Rica. As we made our way from the San Jose airport to our new home in the remote Dota Mountains 2 hours away, I sat in silence as an overwhelming surge of, oh God, what have we done? Swallowed me up. Kevin sat up front as our shuttle driver Minor accelerated and braked intermittently in gridlock rush hour traffic. With our miniature Dachshund Frankie snoozing in her cozy carrying case beside me, I sat in the back seat and braced myself for a slow, jerky, miserable ride. We'd be lucky to get to the farm before dark. The gray clouds hung low, creating a grim and heavy mood. But even on a sunny day, with its tropical yellow and orange plants perpetually flowering, San Jose was not a particularly charming city to me. It was dingy. Freshly washed clothes that hung across balconies on droopy ropes seemed to be getting instantly dirty in the smoggy air. It was impossible to ignore the disorganized power lines crisscrossing the cityscape. Not to mention, most office buildings, restaurants, and houses were surrounded by galvanized steel fences, locked gates, and fortified by wrought iron bars on the windows. Even the most unassuming home seemed overburdened with an excessive degree of buffer between it and the outside world. Looking around, the characteristics of our new country smacked me in the face. Hard. None of the sights were any different from what I had seen on our previous 2 trips. There were no surprises, but it was as though the veil had lifted from my eyes, allowing reality to set in. I waited for the relief trapped deep inside me to bubble up into, yes, Costa Rica, home at last. I waited, but no relief came. Kevin and I weren't making eye contact, so I couldn't tell if he shared the same disillusionment. All I knew was that I needed to believe this visceral reaction was temporary and that I'd feel better after a good night's sleep. First, a drizzle, then larger raindrops slid down the foggy windows. I blamed my melancholy on pure exhaustion and the gloomy weather. Trying to keep the nagging question, was this a huge mistake, at bay, I clutched onto the dog crate and shut my eyes in hopes that I would follow Frankie's example and fall asleep.
Thank you.
Well,
Was there ever a time when you felt like maybe you had actually made a mistake moving?
only at that time.
Just that
Like,
moment.
really, it was truly like, it was like the veil had, like, this was not new. It was like the first time. Like, we've seen San Jose, like, like, what were we expecting? But it was just like the reality of landing. And this was not a vacation. This was like, we had made this decision, and it was the rainy season. It was at the end of August. And yeah, it was just really gloomy, and there was no sunshine to welcome us. And it just, everything, like the hard work to get to this point, and that, that we had been up since, 2:00 in the morning, and getting to the airport, we were tired, and it just felt like, what? I just left my kids behind. Like, what are we doing? Like, are we really doing this? So that was really a very real feeling. But I can't say that it creeped up often. Like, it was like moving forward, and there was always a reason and a brighter day and something that we learned. And it was just, sometimes it was overwhelming. We had days that were hard, but, an internet, like, there's so many things, but we always kind of said, this is the adventure. This is what it's about. Like, this is why we're doing it. So we didn't get too caught up in the, was this a mistake? I missed my kids terribly, but it was also, a blessing. We saw each other. We visited a lot. I had time. I had the gift of time to, back then it was called Skype. So we would Skype, and if they needed me for 2 hours, I was available for 2 hours. Whereas even under the same roof, I was working, they were in school. Like, it was just so busy that sometimes I feel like I had more time for them in Costa Rica than I do it together.
I think you don't realize that when you first move away, though, and leaving family, particularly your children, is just a heavy feeling anyway. And San Jose is not the prettiest city I've ever seen. It's not particularly welcoming. It doesn't look that way anyway. I think Costa Ricans are very welcoming people, but the
Yeah.
city's dingy. Like, that's a really good word for it. Let's talk about your kids for a second. How did they handle it? So your daughter was an adult, kind of out on her own anyway.
Young adults,
Mm-hmm.
so like 21 at the
Mhm.
time, but she had moved out when she was 18, and she had, she was very independent, and so she would not fit under the independence clause anyways. Like, she wouldn't be able to come other than to be kind of under the tourist every 3 month leave every
Mhm.
3 months. But it wasn't even a consideration. I thought there's no way that she would want to move with us. And my son, who was 15 going on 16, of course he was going to come with it. Like, of course.
Right.
So when I actually told, and he was so nature oriented, he loved animals, but lizards and creepy crawly things, and from a very young age. And I just thought our educational system is not a good fit for him. So let's like kind of pull him out and find him something to kind of reignite him into something he might really enjoy. Boy, did I get that wrong. I really thought like I got this all figured out, and my daughter was like, "What do you mean I'm not coming?" So that was her first reaction. And my son was like, "Yeah, we'll see if this all happens." Like, he was just very 15-year-old teenager.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and he ended up, spoiler alert, not coming. So that created a whole reality. And
Right.
the train had kind of left the station. We were going. So it's like, like, how do I, navigate this? So he did, but it was a bit of a curveball for sure. And so in the beginning, there was like kind of a different reaction. And then once we decided to leave, they were completely, they said, "Mom, you need to do this. Like, you need to do this for you. Like, we support you 100%. And I really am really grateful for that they were so mature enough, even at a young age, to see that. So that was lovely.
Beautiful. What did you learn about yourself picking up and moving to a completely different country and starting over?
I think you just have no choice but to learn, your own resiliency, that you're stronger than you think you are.
Yeah.
And there are days when you're not, like, you just learn that life is very different around the world. It's not all cookie cutter suburbia. You just get a totally different perspective on what struggle means for different people, and
What happiness means for different people. What success means for different people.
exactly. Yeah, you take a breath, right? Like, you're like, oh, even taking a chance. I write about this in the book, but there's someone at my old work that kind of looked at me and was, "Oh, I give you 2 years. Like, you'll be back." And like, we had never told anyone that this was forever. Like, people make their own narrative.
They do.
Using
the assumptions.
Costa Rica, it's like, oh, like, and I kind of looked at him and said, if we last 6 months, I will think that that's successful, because honestly, like, I'm doing something, I'm trying something, I'm expanding, even by kind of putting my foot forward, and so some people get locked in, and I think I've always kind of get scared and do it anyway kind of person, and I don't do it perfectly, and there's always something to learn, and there's always something to grow from. So doing this sort of thing, I think if you talk to most expats, will say something very similar. It's just, it opens your world, right? And it opens yourself to compassion and empathy and your own qualities and the things you're not really that great at, and how do you navigate that? You ask for help, right? Like you're able to humble yourself. And I also learned that family is not just blood. Like I find community, but you have to put yourself in that community. You
Yeah.
have to want to be part of that community. We could have just closed the door and be our own little self, but we really extended ourselves because we wanted that experience. We wanted to be part of the local environment and learn from them.
Well, and as a business owner, you're not going to make it if you don't do that. Like you need the community, especially there. You need the community. How did living amongst a different culture change your view of home? Did it?
I have a real every time I leave Canada, I always have a great appreciation of my country. I love Canada very much. It's not perfect, but leaving always makes me go, oh yeah, we have a good country, and I love my country. I'm very grateful to live here and to be back living here. But I also, home is where my kids are.
Right.
I am pretty resolute that I will never move that far away from them ever again. They can move away from me. That seems natural, but I'm not going to move away from them. And home is what you make it. Like it's don't take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. How are your kids doing now?
Oh, they're great. They're doing really great. Yeah, my thriving, and it's great. We get to see each other regularly, and it's nice to be back close to them.
Very nice. Were there any vulnerable parts of your story that you found particularly hard to write?
Not necessarily hard to write, but surprising. I didn't think that my story, my background, the way I was brought up, my siblings got into this book, my parents, my relationship with my mom, and that was very surprising. I thought it was going to be just about Costa Rica and how it turned was basically, kind of what is it that makes me me? And part of that story is my own family background. And so surprised that I went there. And that was vulnerable for me. That was something that I wasn't quite sure how that was going to land. But I'm happy that I pushed through it.
Was it a challenge? I know, I'm certain it was. I'm interested to know how you navigated it because it's a challenge for every memoirist when we are telling stories about other people in our lives that maybe don't necessarily paint them in the brightest light. How did you did a good job of it, by the way. How did you maneuver?
Well, I go through it with, it's my experience. It's not necessarily everyone else's experience. Even it was the hardest was telling my story that I went kind of side by side with Kevin, and yet how he sees it would have been, sometimes similar, but sometimes different. I started writing my story, we did this, we did that. And I really had to change it to, the I story. And that was difficult because I really felt like we, weaved together. But when you're writing a memoir, it really is like what's inside you, what provokes you,
Your memory.
Your memory, right? And my memory of things may not be his memory, and he may come back and go, or you got that wrong. Maybe, but it's really how I distill the information. Now I have a 5-year blog that guided me and go, like that's what I wrote, so I must have felt that, so it's not just a memory exercise alone. Like I had a lot of help with the blog, but it, you really have to be mindful. One thing I really tried to do in my book or my writing style is, even though I may not paint a situation or a person in the best light, is I normally wrap it around and see that in me, so in the beginning, it may look like I'm being judgy, but in the end, it's like, look at me, I'm doing exactly the same thing as what I, kind of judge that. So I try to be fair. I try to be like, I'm not the all knowing in this. It's kind of, this is my perception. And then, oh yeah, let's self-reflect. I have some self-reflection about this. So I try to do that. And I hope I did a fair job.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's where, I hate to call it judgment, but when you're painting somebody in a somewhat negative light, it does come from a little bit of a place of judgment. And I believe we can't judge something that we don't see within ourselves. So I think it's beautiful that you're able to circle back around and kind of highlight that.
Yeah.
Right.
Just trying to be fair to the situation, right?
Sure. How did you decide to do publishing?
I was originally going to self-publish. I had every intention to self-publish. That's what I was going to do, because I really didn't think that I would, that I had the chops to get published, to be honest, like in traditional publishing. And I had heard a lot about self-publishing, and I had read, and and my blog was through a website, so that was digital. And I thought, well, I'm going to give it a try. And my intention was to do kind of a trilogy, kind of the before, the landing, and the first bit of, and then the after, like what made us sell and why and so forth. And I thought, oh, that'll give me quantity, it'll give me 3 books. And then I had a relationship from like years ago. My daughter actually introduced me to a publisher, a woman. And I still get her newsletters, and I'm always interested in what she's up to. And I thought, I think I'm going to reach out to Lindsay just to see, like, mostly to ask her questions like, what do you think about this? And then she said, I'd really like to talk to you about your book. So we set up a talk, and she's like, please submit your, I had the first part fully edited and like ready to go. And she's like, we would love to publish your book. Oh, it took a month before I heard back. And they offered me a contract, and I was just like, what? Wait, what? So that was exciting. It was a hybrid. She has all the publishing background of traditional publishing. And it was just a really interesting model. And I thought, okay. And we were meeting every week to discuss like the next steps. And she really had a great process. At first I thought, like, this is not even about I couldn't even get about the book. It was just kind of researching who else is doing this sort of memoir, and go to the stores and check, where would your book be? And it was just this really interesting journey that I wasn't really expecting. But we talked every week. She gave me so much time. And then she said, I know you want to do a trilogy, and I've never seen that in a memoir before, but and I'm not saying no. I think, it's what you want. I support that. But I'm going to give you 2 weeks to meditate on it. I'm like, meditate on it? What are you talking about? But up until then, I was like doing the things. Like, if she gave me homework, I was doing it. And she said, meditate on it. So I was like, well, I'll meditate on it for 2 weeks, but I'm telling you, I'm doing this trilogy. And I actually did the homework, and I kind of realized, like, memoirs don't work that way. And it would be better, because if it was a trilogy, they'd all be kind of almost novella size. And that too was a whole other situation. And it came bubbling up in me. No, this should be a book, and we should do it, together, and a 3-parter, but, be really clear on it. So on my call, when I was so sure, I was so righteous, thinking that it was going to be a trilogy. I said, I really think that it needs to be one book. And she's like, I fully support that decision. Thank you for meditating on it. And that's how we're going to do it, which was great because part 1 was done.
Mm-hmm.
Part 2, what we call the shitty first draft, was done, but still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
And part 3 was not was an idea. I had nothing, I didn't know what the story arc at this point was. So there was just a lot, but we still had a deadline. So we were working on this deadline, but everything looked very different. So there was, I'll say, some stress and pressure in that, but we got it done. And
I've heard people compare it to giving birth to a child. It's a piece of you that goes into it.
Yeah, it's, I was focused, let me tell you. I was working a 40-hour-a-week job, and I was working what seemed like, 20 to 30 hours on the book. So I was all in for sure.
Ooh, which is so hard to do too, because sometimes the creativity just isn't there, especially if you've spent an entire day at work.
Yeah, I would wake up 2 hours before going to work to write, then go to work, and then come back and do another 2 to 3 hours. And then most of my weekends were spent writing or editing or doing something towards.
Oh my goodness. And how long did that go on for?
2 years.
Ooh, that's a haul. My goodness sakes.
Well, I should say 2 years. It was, I was writing for 2 years. The first part that I had submitted was basically done. There was some tweaking, editing, finessing to do. So that was done, but, and I count the 2 years in that, but with the publishing, it was a year and a half.
Wow. What's the most surprising thing about releasing your story out for other people to read?
How exhausted I was after the launch. I didn't realize I was just flat out exhausted. Oh yeah, I've been going, and but I am prolific and I do love to write, so it's certainly not a burden. But I was surprised at just how exhausted I was. But I don't know if it's surprised, but I'm delighted that the reviews I'm getting, the overarching comment, everyone's saying their own thing, but basically everyone's saying I took them along for the ride. They were there with me. And that's, probably one of the nicest compliments I could get as a writer, is that is what I want. I want you to be right there with me, feeling the feelings. So if people are feeling that, it's, I feel like I did my job, and I'm really grateful that that's actually what people are saying about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If you could take yourself back to any one day in Costa Rica, what would you tell yourself?
That it was not a mistake, and don't worry, you got this. It on day 1, it really was just wow, the veil lifted. But yeah, if I had to talk to myself that when I was feeling that, it's you got this. You're going to be okay. No matter what happens, you'll figure it out.
What do you want people to take away from your story?
I'm a big believer of following your tug. I'm dyslexic, so I often say tug instead of gut. So it became a little bit of a thing with people that know me. But tug also means true ultimate guide. And I think that we know what we need to do, and we often stop ourselves. And I know for myself, I'm a very responsible person, and I follow rules, and you can't just, get up and leave. And I don't think I did that. I think, we did the research, and we made sure that we were able to somewhat do it, but you're never going to be fully ready. You're never really going to know if you can do it. You just don't know, and I'm not talking about moving to Costa Rica, just anything, starting a new business, starting, getting into a relationship. There are no guarantees, but there is a sense of aliveness that you feel by doing something that's a little bit unknown and that's a little bit out of your comfort zone. And I'm all for that. I think that people, if my book gives them a sense that, wow, like this is like, what did they just do? But they did it anyway. I hope that they get enjoyment out of it, but also a little nudge that,
Ah,
that
yeah, some inspiration.
I'm not special. That's the one thing I want people to know. Like, I'm just an ordinary suburban. Like, I don't have special powers. I just kind of did it. And it could have been a really bad mistake. And it could have been, like there could have been a lot of things that went terribly wrong. And we did have some pretty bad things that happened along the way. But, like it does show you what you're made of, and I think most people, will overcome and are very, very resilient. And my story is nothing compared to, many hardship stories, so my story is not a hardship story. Mine is, just one of, following your tug, doing something that you want to do and you're not sure about.
I think even if it does end disastrously, or if it does go disastrously, there's something to be gained and gleaned from that as well, though, right? And I think so often people, especially those of us that live in the first world, that are very, very comfortable with our everyday creature comforts, don't make decisions to do big things out of fear. And because it's just more comfortable to stick with the status quo, and we miss out on so much, including the sometimes traumatic, catastrophes that come along the way. Those are important too. Those are the kinds of things that help us grow.
Yeah, I'll be writing about those stories next.
Oh, good. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear you. I absolutely loved reading your book, every single word of it. It's just, I think it's really difficult to capture the overall experience of such a profoundly beautiful place like Costa Rica. And if you can, then you're probably a pretty gifted writer. And you had me, I'm going to agree with everybody else. You had me right there with you. Like in the moment, I could smell it. I could see it. I could feel it. It was a beautiful experience. I highly recommend.
I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you taking your time to come and talk to me.
Well, thank you for giving me the time.
Absolutely. And I hope we can do this again. I'm looking forward to what else you have on the horizon.
Well, I've done a lot of adventurous stuff, so I'm just picking and choosing right now which next adventure I want to write about. I walked across 3 provinces with a big dog when I was in my 20s, and I hitchhiked all over Europe, also in my 20s. I was a camp watcher in a heli fishing resort in northern BC, where you can only get it there by either helicopter, float plane, or a boat. So there's that experience. So yeah, I'm just
got a few stories in you.
Yeah, I'm working on my second book right now, and we'll just see where that goes.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see what else you put out. Where can people find a copy of this book?
They can go to my website, and all of the information is there. So it's Anne, Anne Beaudoin, my last name, BeAudoin, writer.com, or Amazon, or Barnes & Noble if you're in the States, Indigo if you're in Canada, any independent bookstore. If you ask them, they can order it for you. I love independent bookstores, so please support your local bookstore. Libraries, if you ask for it, they'll be able to get it for you. So, and it's global. So people in the UK are reading my book. You can Google it and you'll be able to find it.
Great. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time out of your day to come and chat with me. I hope we can circle back around and do this again when you release the next one. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Erin.
Thanks, Anne.
That's it for today's episode of For Love of Memoir. Thanks for listening. If something in this conversation moved you, I'd be so grateful if you'd follow the show, leave a comment, or share it with someone you care about. Those small actions tell the algorithm that our content matters, so we can reach more memoir lovers like you.
It's a free and simple way to support the show and the authors we feature. You can find links to today's guest and their book in the show notes. Until next time, take care and keep writing your story.